Hi, I'm Karuna. I'm the founder and executive director of Mind Oasis, and my guest on Meditation Happy Hour, Tea Talk and Truth with Karuna is Giovanni Dientsmann. How are you, Giovanni?
Hi, Karuna. I'm doing well. A pleasure to be here.
Good. So, we've danced before. You've been an author spotlight on Mind Oasis in the past. Tell us just quickly, we'll get into it, but tell us about the book that you brought to Mind Oasis and if you have anything new in the hopper.
Sure. So the book is called Mindful Self-Discipline, and it's all about an approach to self-discipline that is not the military or the martial approach. It's an approach more based on awareness. And so people are finding, especially people in the meditation and mindfulness circles, are finding it refreshing perspective on this important topic.
Do you have anything new in the hopper?
I am working on some courses, a new version for the Mindful Self-Discipline app as well, and perhaps a new book, but I cannot say much because this one I'm going to be traditionally published by a big publisher in the space, and I should keep my mouth quiet for now, I was told.
Okay. But that's exciting. So Giovanni, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about your life so far as you like to share it with people.
Okay. So I'm a meditation teacher, I'm an author, and I coach people with self-discipline and also on the topic of anxiety. I've been meditating daily for over 20 years, more closer to 22 years now. And I've tried so many different styles. Does that mean
you started when you were 5? Because you look too young to say that. What?
I started when I was, what age is it? 15?
Okay.
I was 15, yeah. So I've tried so many different styles, and for me, meditation was always part of a deeper spiritual journey. So I've sat with different Zen masters and yogis and monks and lamas, and I've learned from a lot of different traditions until I kind of found the style of meditation, the tradition that mostly works for me. And in the meditation space, I saw that people come to meditation for many different reasons. For me, it was never about just kind of calming down and being happy in the moment. For me, meditation was always seen as a form of empowerment, of expanding my potential, of mastering the monkey mind, rather than just calming down. And so the idea of self-discipline and willpower and kind of energy was always an aspect of meditation practice for me.
So we're going to get into the self-discipline aspect because it's very interesting. You actually are the first person I can think of who has presented the word discipline to me, where it's actually stuck. And it's really, honestly, it's transformed my life a bit and in a really meaningful, good way. But before we go there, apart from being a self-discipline master, do you have other things like family, friends? Where the heck in the world are you?
Sure. Yeah, okay. So yes, I'm married and I have a 2-year-old daughter called Lalita. It's the name of an Indian goddess that we chose for her. And I've practiced martial arts, Kung Fu, for many years. I still do. It's part of who I am. It's a great sport, and I love the philosophy and the discipline it brings. What else? I am in Australia. I lived in Sydney for many, many years, but now I've moved to a small beach town called Airlie Beach on the north of Australia. Tropical weather, never gets cold here, so I'm loving it.
Do you surf?
I don't surf, but I swim and I dive. Yeah, scuba dive.
Very cool. Very cool. So I think let me back up just a little bit. I want to tell a little bit of a story. So when I was preparing for the author spotlight that you did on Mind Oasis for Mindful Self-Discipline, I prepared. And I remember when we were going through our interview together, you were grateful that I actually prepared and I knew what you had written because maybe you had had interviewers ask you a lot of questions that, clearly they hadn't read the book. And I had, though it is a tome, and I have to admit, it's sitting right here. Look at. I have to admit, I didn't read every single word, but I read enough of it, and I kept texting my friend to say, I'm going to have a hell of a time with this guy. He's all about self-discipline and I'm a wild child and I'm not sure how these two things are going to come together, right? And she was kind of laughing. She's like, Karuna, you're prepared. You're going to be all right. And then as I listened to you talk about self-discipline, what I realized was that the freedom that I experienced through my studies of Tibetan Buddhism is self-discipline. The act of the practices I engage in is a form of self-discipline. It's just not the way that I had thought about it before. So I want to know how you got to, you could have picked anything and you got to self-discipline. Why?
Yeah. So
Or
other
how?
other people told me they, as I'm sharing how I am and how I go about my projects and my goals and physical exercise and meditation, they're like, oh, wow, I wish I was as disciplined as you. And this would come again and again and again. And in the beginning of me running my blog, I asked this question of people like, what should I create a course on? And the topic of self-discipline was like highly voted. Like a lot of people voted for that topic. Like when I'm just reading books on spirituality, the terms of self-discipline comes here and there, but it's almost like a given. It's like, hey, if you're serious about this, you will be disciplined. And the things that all spiritual paths ask us to do is a form of discipline. Like we have to constantly observe our mind and discipline our thoughts and emotions so that they are more on the positive side, etc. But the word discipline is not that often used, but in books on personal growth and personal development, then that word is used a lot. And I said like, this is what I've been practicing. And I was like, up to that point, I was under the impression that everyone who didn't have self-discipline is because they didn't have a goal. Like they were just kind of lazy. They were not motivated to achieve anything. Because if they are, you're going to be disciplined about it, right? That's the only way. And then I realized like, no, I've been living inside my own bubble. That's not how human mind works for most people. And so I started offering as a form of coaching. And of all forms of coaching that I was offering, this was the one that people were coming to again and again. And people were coming in a discovery call and say like, you know what, if I can't make this change, like I don't know if I have a reason to live. And I said, oh my God, this is really important, right? And then I felt like, okay, I've stumbled on something that is a deep core need for people in any area of life.
One reason I find this so interesting is even though I am a self-identified wild child, and even though my son, who's now 25, grown and A-okay, I would say, push boundaries like normal teenagers do. When he was young, I knew that he needed boundaries. And so from the time that he was a very young child, even though I'm a pretty liberal human, he had, the times that we had bedtime and there was a bath and it happened at the same time. And there was a book and it happened at the same time. And yes, really, there was an 8:30 bedtime. And if he didn't like that, then he could read a book. But in our home, 8:30 was the bedtime and we really stuck by that. And then also, sort of the rules and regulations that kept him safe. And I think that in teenage years, then, so children learn how to abide by the rules and the boundaries. So the adult gives them that gift. And then in their teenage years, they have to break free from that. They have to experiment and break outside of what it feels like to be boundaryless. But it's interesting to go back to why I felt discipline was important when my kiddo was young, and to then look at how I'm applying those same sort of boundaries for freedom to my own personal life now. So my question to you is, in your coaching, I mean, you've obviously hung out with a lot of people who have maybe, we could say failed. I don't like that word, but let's say failed. Then you've probably had people who have triumphed. Can you talk a little bit about those journeys with other people in your coaching?
Mm-hmm. People who come to me, they have often been very successful in one area of their life, but they are struggling a lot in the other area. And they know that self-discipline was what allowed them to be successful in this area. But there are so many obstacles in another area that they don't know how to deal with. It could be distraction, it could be procrastination, it could be self-doubt, lack of clarity, the many obstacles. But they have the sense that self-discipline is the key for them. Other people who come to me, like I've worked with some people who are really, really young, and their life and their schedule was a mess. They were just spending like a lot of time on computer games or other things of the sort. But they had goals. So maybe that's one thing in common for everyone that comes to self-discipline, is that they have a goal in some area of their life, and it's important enough for them that they want to make a change. They know that if things continue like this, time is going to pass, and 5 years from now, I'm going to be in the same place. And so that pushes them to want to learn this skill.
What are your personal goals right now?
So I have goals basically in my work area and in my spirituality area. And in the work area, some goals are more kind of long-term and others are more short-term. Which one do you want to hear?
I want to hear them all. We want to hear them all. Tell us all about it.
Right. So in terms of long-term goals for my career, I have only three. One of them is I want to sell 1 million copies of this book. I want 1 million people to have this book in their hands. And at the moment, about 6,000. So we are still far away to go. But we're going to get there.
If you're listening, you have to know that I'm holding up his book, Mindful Self-Discipline. I'm sure you can get it all over the place. Unfortunately, I'm an Amazon girl. Don't shoot me. But you can pick up a copy of Mindful Self-Discipline, and I would encourage you to do so. It's a lovely read. Okay, keep going.
Thank you.
We're like 999,000 away. That's not bad.
Yeah. So that's goal number one. Goal number two is about the self-discipline app, that I want to grow it to a certain size, and I want to create a lot of mini courses for it. So I want it to be like the one-stop solution for all things self-discipline. So if you're struggling with decluttering your home, if you're struggling with managing tasks in your digital life, if you're struggling with getting motivation, I want to create courses about all of these different subtopics of self-discipline. Awesome. That's goal number two. And then goal number three is that I want to build a system that lasts. I'm not here playing the short game. I don't want to be a New York Times bestseller and then the book gets forgotten, as it happens with so many New York Times bestseller. I'm not even going after the New York Times bestseller. I'm going after a legacy. I want to create a system that is relevant 50 years from now, 100 years from now, that people look back and, like, there was this book back in 2020, that was 2021, that was published called Mindful Self-Discipline. We're still reading it today. It's still one of the best books on the topic. That's what I'm after.
Amazing. Okay. So then what's your spiritual goals?
Wow. Okay. Nobody has ever asked me that in a podcast before.
That's because I'm highly unique, and I promise that I'm going to share my goals with you. So it'll be in tandem.
Okay. So in the spiritual tradition that I'm in, I follow Hindu Tantra, which is just a bit of a context. It's the actual traditional Tantra, not the sexualized Tantra that we see everywhere in the West these days. And in this particular tradition, we do certain practices to achieve what is called a siddhi. And a siddhi means a perfection. Once you get a perfection in a certain practice, then you get certain special skills, so to speak, certain new channels of perception. You kind of grow spiritually from siddhi to siddhi, from attainment to attainment. And so my goal and long-term goal is I want to achieve as many siddhis as I can in this lifetime.
Would that be Mahasiddhi?
Well, the Mahasiddhi, I think, is a bigger goal. Yeah. We don't use this term in Hindu Tantra, but I know it's used in Tibetan Tantra. Yeah.
So I mentioned when we first got started that actually exploring the idea of self-discipline and mindful self-discipline with you has really affected me personally in this really beautiful way. And I'd like to share with you, since you were so open and courageous with your goals, because now it's going to be on my podcast that in 2,000 years people will listen to and they'll be like, Giovanni said he was going to. So I woke up about, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago, 5 months ago. It was shortly after we spoke. And I was sniffing on the age of 47, and I've done a lot of things with my life. I have a beautiful grown son. I have a kind, fun husband. We always say he's lots of fun. I started Mind Oasis. It's in year 5. I can't believe we're saying that, but it's amazing. And I've been touched by a lot of love in my life. I've been loved by many people, and I love many people. And I was like, so what's next? Like, I was kind of having what I would call a classic midlife crisis. I had bought a motorcycle. I had done some other like goofy, like very midlife crisis sort of things, not plastic surgery. And I was like, well, what's next? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to climb a really big mountain. And I was running, and in my tradition, in Tibetan Buddhism, the deity that I'm working with is fierce and fearless, and sort of you could call it like kind of a death destroyer. So he looks pretty badass, right? And I had this little voice on one shoulder that said, who are you to think that you can climb a big mountain? And then I had this really big voice from within that said, who are you not to climb a big mountain? And so I started imagineering it. And I happen to live near Boulder, Colorado. And I have a good friend who's taking an expedition to Nepal in 2023 to a 23,000 foot mountain. And as you know, and others know who have a physical practice, you don't get off the couch and climb a 23,000 foot mountain, right? You have to put in incremental goals to get to the higher goal. And so I came home and I started asking people, like, what do you do if you want to climb a really big mountain? The highest mountain I've ever climbed is 19,321 feet. And it's kind of a different game when you get above 20,000 feet. So I started to lean into people with knowledge. And then I started creating a game plan. And then I created incremental goals of how to get there. And then I sort of backlayed the day-to-day things that have to happen in order for me to get to those objectives that, include going to Mount Baker for a 6-day intro to mountaineering course where you do a summit, but along the way, you're getting the skills that you need. And I think that really came from your book and our time together, in that if you have, and I'm not saying everybody has to climb a damn 23,000 foot mountain. I know it's insane, but I am saying that even if it's you just want to have read all the classics by the time you croak, you have to have a plan. Can you talk about, when you look at planning, how do you look at planning? How, if somebody heard this podcast and they're like, I'm going to change my life because Giovanni said mindful self-discipline is the way to do it, what's your first advice that you give people?
And first of all, thanks a lot for sharing that. I was very moved to hear. And everyone has a mountain that they want to climb. It might not be a physical mountain, but everyone has a mountain that they want to climb in their lives. So the question is, what is the first thing that I would get people to go through or talk about if they want to be more disciplined? I'll probably start at figuring out your why. Because discipline makes sense when you have a why, when you have a goal, when you have a purpose. And unfortunately, many people these days, they don't have a clear sense of purpose. Viktor Frankl, probably one of the biggest voices in this field, he says that society is living a crisis of meaning. And if that was the case when he said it, I imagine what he would think now when people spend hours and hours a day in TikTok, or like they're just seeking the stimulation of quick dopamine, of instant gratification, one thing after another, and it's each time easier and painless to do that. So the brain is like, why not? Well, there are many consequences. So I would start by making sure that that person either has a clear goal, or the person is open to figuring out what are the deeper goals that I want to pursue in my life. And then when you have a goal, then self-discipline makes sense. So I'd say the self-discipline is purpose's best friend. If you have a purpose, then you want self-discipline. If you have no purpose, if you have no clear goal, no ambitions, nothing that you want to change, then it makes no sense to talk about self-discipline. Now, once we have a clear idea of a goal, I would check in, like, is that goal your own goal? Or is it the goal that you think you need to pursue because everyone else is pursuing? In other words, in the psychological literature, they talk about the have to goals and the want to goals.
Ooh, tell us more.
Yeah, so a have to goal is the things that you are seeking because you are kind of consciously or unconsciously imitating other people. Everyone is going to this type of university and having this type of job and building this type of life, and then buying one car and then another, and wanting to accumulate money, and you get pulled by that gravity. There's a gravity pulling you to want the same things that people around you want. And in most cases, that is a have to go. It's something that you feel you have to do, but it doesn't come from your heart. And self-discipline will help you achieve those goals. There's no doubt, but you will not be really fulfilled. Now, a want to go is something that comes from deep within you. It's something that is related to your core values. It could be something related to spirituality. It could be something related to personal growth, to service. It could be, like from one of my clients, like, I want to produce inspiring original music. Like, that is a want to, like, no one around him is doing that. He didn't pick that up from anyone else. Like, it comes from within. So I would make sure that you are pursuing the right goals in your life, because those are the ones that will make you happier.
What I love about that is on Mind Oasis, and I guess, well, I have to give credit where credit's due. So this really comes from Kelly Ann Lindsay, and she's one of my teachers, and she actually had the meditation teacher training that I took so that then I could start Mind Oasis. And she has us ask the question, what does your heart most desire, or what does your heart most long for? And you can do it in your practice daily, meaning sometimes, like if I've had a hell of a week, sometimes the answer that comes up is, I just want a little calm or a little quiet. And then there's other times that it's the big goals. So I didn't answer fully the question about my own personal goals, but my spiritual goal is I want complete freedom. And in that, freedom for all sentient beings. So not for me, but so that I can be useful, because we need useful people in this world. So that heartfelt desire is what we talk a lot about on Mind Oasis as fueling. So it's like the jet engine fuel for your meditation practice. Because I don't know, okay, you could get calm, you could have more peace, but there's so much more that you can have through a meditation practice when you understand what your heartfelt desire is. And that's what I'm hearing from you. So I want to know a little bit about your meditation practice, how you present meditation, because you do have another book that was an earlier book around meditation. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us a little bit about how you approach meditation practice.
Sure. So that book is called Practical Meditation. And in that book, that book is basically an expression of my journey of having tried so many different styles throughout the years until I kind of found what works for me. My point of view is that, meditation is something incredibly personal. It's just like there are hundreds of different types of physical activity and sports. But if you only think that it's either running or lifting weights, you may try them both and don't really like them. And then you feel, okay, exercise is not for me. And it's similar these days. People think like meditation, it's either mantra or breathing, right? It's one of the paying attention to the breath. It's one of these two things. And maybe you don't like any, but there's like so many different styles of meditation. And it's such an important practice. It's something that we will be doing for the rest of our lives if we want the benefits. So it's worth spending the time figuring out what style of meditations and of teachings work best for you. That's not one that is better than the other. It's just what is uniquely suited to your temperament, to your goals, to your personality. And so that is one of my views about meditation that is probably different from what people find out there a lot.
Yeah. Especially, I have to say, because I don't know how it is in your lineage or tradition, but, I think that in my lineage and tradition, there's a pretty
vast.
I don't want to say regimented, but I want to say like sort of if you engage in shamatha practices, which, is calm abiding based typically around the breath, and the teacher, then there's the hope, the promise that you can fully awaken. And it's a bit of a prescription, like this is how you do it. So yeah, I
most likely inside there's so many different lineages in Tibetan Buddhism. Each of them probably has a slightly different path and practices that they
for sure.
I remember when I read the book Magic and Mystery in Tibet by Alexandra Daniel, and she has spent I think a century ago. She was a Western woman, and she spent many years in Tibet studying with different lamas, and also with all the different religious figures of Tibet. And her conclusion is like all lineages of Tibet emphasize that you need to master concentration. Right? That's kind of the foundation for everything. But they say like the object that you use for concentration is almost irrelevant. If you want to focus on your breath, you focus on your breath. If you want to focus on an image of a deity, you can do that. If you want to focus on a pebble, on a piece of crystal, anything that helps your mind be centered and achieve that calm abiding on one object, that's fine. And so there's already a big room for people to experiment with and see what they like.
Yeah. Tell us, Giovanni, how do people connect with you? So like websites, books, all that good stuff. How do we connect with you?
Sure. So I have two websites, one liveinthare.com, and that's focused on meditation and well-being. And my second website where I'm putting almost all of my effort now is mindfulselfdiscipline.com. That's the same title of the book. It's the same title of the app. So people can join the newsletter there, and there are some free bonuses they can download. They can obviously also get the books. And I run free live classes on Insight Timer every week. So for those of you in the US, that would be Sundays, 5 p.m. EST. So if you want to join and watch me speaking live about self-discipline, I'll be there.
Very cool. So liveinthare.com, but where most of your efforts are these days and where people can connect with you via a newsletter is at mindfulselfdiscipline.com, right?
Right. Yeah.
Awesome. Giovanni, what's your truth?
Can you expand on that question? Whatever comes. My truth is that this whole universe is a play of consciousness. It's an expression of something that lies beyond everything. And we too are an expression of that infinite consciousness. And so let us play on. Let us live without fear. Let us live knowing who we truly are and expressing ourselves.
When you look out into the future, what kind of a world do you see for your daughter?
I see a world in which people who have awareness and self-discipline and willpower, they're going to be so much ahead of everyone else, because the whole world is going to get each time more and more distracted, more and more lost in a sea of pleasure and instant gratification and entertainment that comes from their phones and internet. So those people who have a deeper sense of purpose and can remain disciplined and focused on that, they're going to be living very different lives.
Awesome.
I'm sorry that it's not a more optimistic view, but I am concerned about the future of humanity.
Yeah, but you're also doing something about it.
Yeah.
Yay, you.
Yeah, I'm doing what I can.
Good. I actually thought that was I thought that was a largely optimistic perspective, to be honest with you, because what I heard, I'll tell you what I heard. What I heard is that these touchstones, these efforts that we make, and by we, I mean like you and I mean me, and I mean the communities that support our work, that support one another, that they matter. Neither of us, to my knowledge, are becoming millionaires off of doing the work. And yet the work is important because it's going to become increasingly important as folks who aren't doing the work continue to be swayed by the challenges of our technological world.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's we are not meant to function the way that we are functioning lately for most people. It's not healthy, and there is a reason why the rates of suicide is increasing, rates of depression and anxiety is increasing, and at the same time we notice this among the newer generations. Like there's kind of a cynicism, like a distrust about everything, and kind of, I don't know, it just seems, maybe I'm a very traditional guy because spirituality, more traditional values, kind of more linked to ethics and morality and these deeper values. But it seems that morally speaking, we seem to be degrading as a species, and that's concerning for me.
It's interesting you would say that. I've just started writing a little bit for Elephant Journal, and the article that I'm working on right now, actually, that I quote you, is called Discipline as the Path to Freedom and Happiness. And I start out by acknowledging that I'm a reformed wild child, and that discipline used to be the bad word, but then I go on to say that it's tough to feel good about yourself if you're not ethically aligned. And I think that even folks who are playing in the fire at the moment wake up with sort of a morality hangover, because I think that the essence of who we are is tied deeply to helping others. Actually, I think that's kind of the human way. And when we don't do that, it doesn't feel good. And I know that from personal experience as a reformed mean girl. And I think that degradation, the moral degradation, I think there's hope. I think that there's people doing hard work, and they will continue to hold the light up.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Giovanni, it's always a delight. Oh, wait a minute. Are we going to do something? I think we're going to do something together.
Oh, yes. You want to talk about it?
I think we should talk about it.
Yes.
What are we going to do?
So we're going to launch a 10-week course.
Yes.
Mindful self-discipline course in Mind Oasis, you and I.
Yes. And because I am a disciplined woman at this point, I will be getting my act together to pull this all together. But I'll share why I'm excited about it, and then maybe you can share why you're excited about it. But here's why I'm excited. I tend to teach on my own. Actually, I've never partnered with anyone because I'm an only child, and that's the way I roll. But I was excited about partnering with you because I think we both bring two unique perspectives to the table. I think that you are a little bit more traditional and disciplined. And I think that I'm a little less traditional and maybe am leaning into discipline. And to me, if I were a consumer, if I were someone that was looking, that wasn't necessarily all Giovanni, but it wasn't all Karuna either, I might be like, oh, I'm going to get like both of these worlds and can see how those journeys sort of intersect. And I feel like we collectively do have a good synergy together. So that's why I'm excited. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited because, people who come to Mind Oasis, they are already at a different level of consciousness. They are seeking something deeper in their life. And often the difference between having deeper values and being able to live those deeper values is self-discipline. So I would love a world in which good people are disciplined, because that means that good people are more empowered. I mean, if you think about it, the problem in our world, and this is, some forms of spirituality have also played a role in this, because traditionally spirituality has been kind of associated with, denying the world and the materialistic side of life and the body and etc. And in this sense, I'm not traditional. I am very modern. I think that we need a new form of spirituality that integrates the whole being. Values such as career success and relationship happiness and money and recognition, these do not need to be seen as anti-spiritual. They are forms of empowerment. They are desires that live in people's hearts. And if you are seeking your healthy desires in a way that is helping you grow as a human being and that is going to help other people in one way or another, then go for it. Why not? Right? One of the problems in this world is that people who are virtuous are not powerful, and people in power are often not virtuous. And people who are kind and compassionate are often not famous, and people who are famous are often not kind and compassionate. I would like a world in which the past human beings have more power, more recognition, more influence, more impact. And I think that self-discipline is what can allow us to be more empowered. I know that empowerment is a word that is thrown a lot these days and can feel a little bit cliche, but it's in the sense of having stronger values and having the ability, the power to live your life in harmony with them, to live authentically with your values. And that is going to take some energy. That is going to take some willpower. That's going to take some awareness. In Buddhism, there's this word vidya, which is energy or effort. And there are many lists of virtues in Buddhism. They're like the 8 factors of enlightenment and the 5 this and the 17 that.
A lot, Giovanni.
Yeah, the Buddha loved lists. The Buddha loved lists. And what you notice that this word vidya makes it to most of those lists.
Oh yeah.
Right. And this, for me, vidya is a form of empowerment. It's being disciplined. It's being on track. It's giving in your best. And I think that good people need that.
It just feels so fucking good. It does. It's freedom and happiness on a platter through determination. And we'll wrap up, but I just want to add that something, I teach 2 meditation immersions, one which I would call kind of the basic and one which is more advanced. And I don't mean like it's like a step ladder, but what I mean is we explore more advanced sort of techniques, and also maybe just, you have to have kind of a base in order to grow from the base. And the first is the base and the second is where you grow. And what I've noticed is people want the results of meditation without putting in the hard work. And it's sort of a metaphor for life. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, to me, all you kind of have to do is to show up for your practice every day. And if you show up for your practice every day, it doesn't take very long, no matter the technique, to begin to first notice the monkey mind and then to befriend the monkey mind. And literally, you just have to have a consistent practice. And once you have, and to me, you have to have a little discipline in order to have a consistent practice. And it's, I wish it was more complex than that. And I used to think it was, but I've just found in my personal practice and the practice of my students that if they just really say, I'm going to meditate 20 minutes a day, and they do it 6 out of 7 days a week or 7 out of 7, that everything changes, and in a really short amount of time. It's literally the discipline that gets you to the freedom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so mindfulselfdiscipline.com is where people find you. You have an amazing newsletter. I love it. It's one of the ones I actually open. You and I are going to do something fun in 2022 together. And so you either have to go to mindoasis.org or you have to go to mindfulselfdiscipline.com, or you can go to both, get the both of best worlds of both worlds. And then you'll know when we're going to come together for our collaboration. Giovanni, anything else you want to share?
Just comes to mind a quote from Henry David Thoreau, in which he said that the highest aim in life is that which requires the highest and finest discipline. And, we are speaking here to an audience of spiritual seekers, of practitioners. And from my point of view, and that's how I end the book, it's a chapter that I was not sure, should I add this or should I not add this? And I left it in there. Our spiritual practice is the highest and finest discipline because it's full-time. It's full-time. It's observing ourselves. It's constantly growing and noticing the nature of our mind and of the thoughts and emotions that are coming in, and little by little coaching ourselves to be more on the wholesome side of things. And that, I would agree with Thoreau, is the highest and finest discipline.
I love it. Mindfulselfdiscipline.com. Giovanni, so much love always. Thank you for joining me on Tea Talk and Truth with Karuna. And again, you can go to Giovanni's website or mindoasis.org and find out more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh,
That was pretty cool.
Was it?